That's all for merging. Now let's proceed and let's talk about GitHub. GitHub is a repository hosting service. There are also other services like, for example, Bitbucket. And you could create an account at GitHub for free and create remote repository there. And afterwards, you could connect your local Git repository with remote GitHub repository and make them synchronized. After any change in local Git repository, you could push those changes to remote repository and vice versa. New changes from the GitHub repository from remote repository you could pull to local Git repository. And that's how it actually works. Remote repository looks exactly the same as local repository. There are working directory, staging area, and Git repository. Same as locally. And when you connect local repository and remote repository, in local repository you actually create new remote. And all remotes have specific name. Default name for remote is origin. And afterwards, when your repository is connected to remote repository, other developers, for example Mike, could also connect to your remote repository, certainly if you grant such permissions. And afterwards, when, for example, I, on my computer, create new file in the working directory, stage it and commit, and afterwards push to remote repository, Mike is able to pull changes from remote repository, and this new file will be created on the My computers as well. Certainly such communication works in the same way as we discussed before. There are different branches, commits in the branches, and every commit is made to when specific file is modified or added and so on. But idea is that Mike will be able to pull changes created on my computer via remote repository. Same applies when Mike decides to make some changes on his computer, push them to remote repository, and afterwards I am able to pull them to my local repository. That's how different collaborators could work via the same remote centralized repository. And another advantage of using remote repositories is that your repositories are safe there, and even if you delete local repository, you could always clone remote repository again to your local computer and proceed working. That's how it works.